Boardroom smells of polish and old paper, the kind of air that makes voices carry farther than they should. Flags stand motionless behind a long table. At its center sits Admiral Pierce, silver bars bright as ice under the lights. He reviews a packet as if it has already answered every question. It hasn't. Across from him, Petty Officer Grace Marin rests both palms on her thighs, steadying their tremor into stillness. She wears standard PT gear from morning rehab, a simple gray shirt that makes her look like any other sailor back from medical leave. Only her eyes betray the miles. The Admiral skims a line and exhales through his nose. The report says you were temporarily incapacitated. His tone sharpens around the word, as if it were a choice. A few officers along the wall trade careful glances. One stares at the tabletop as though it can spare him from witnessing this. A young legal clerk, new to the rhythm of rank, studies Grace with a worry he cannot name. Grace does not meet the bait. She has no appetite for debate dressed as courtesy. Without hurry, she slides a medical note across the table. It lists procedures in clean letters, the kind that avoid drama. Chest tube, rib plating, healed. The Admiral barely looks. Descriptions can be dramatic, he says, tapping the page. If you ignored an order that night, we need to be clear why. She hears the laughter from that night. Not joyful, but the shaky kind people use when fear has emptied the cupboard. She hears the hiss of extinguishers and the radio's clipped commands. Her ribs ache with memory that isn't pain anymore, only a marker for where faith lives now. She rises, asks permission to clarify, and receives a curt nod. With the calm of someone who has decided to be done with shadows, Grace lifts the hem of her shirt at the side, just high enough to reveal two pale, ladder-straight scars curving under her ribs. They are precise, healed, ordinary to surgeons and life-changing to the people who wear them. The Admiral's jaw tightens, then loosens. He is not a cruel man. He is a busy one who forgot that busy can make you careless. The room draws a breath and keeps it. A senior chief in the back looks at the scars. Then at the Admiral, then at the door, as if expecting it to open. Grace lowers her shirt, retakes her seat, and folds her hands. She says nothing more. Silence does the work better than any argument. Before the board, there was a night at sea that smelled like hot metal and salt. The destroyer rode a hard swell. On the fantail, a routine drill folded into reel. Threat when a fuel line coughed. Flame where it had no right to be. The alarm sang its single stark note. Grace, a small team coxswain cross-trained in damage control, sprinted into smoke thick enough to taste. The deck shivered with each burst of the pump. She counted heartbeats, not steps, because panic loses count and she could not afford to. An order crackled in her ear. Pull back, wait for foam, regroup at frame 60. She stepped through it because a trapped junior sailor was coughing in the dark. 3 frames ahead, and delay would turn into a eulogy. The choice wasn't defiance. It was duty wearing urgency's coat. She dropped low, slid on one knee, and found the kid by the weak beam of a failing headlamp. When the bulkhead tremored, a brace kissed her ribs hard enough to leave the kind of damage that feels like lightning and then like fire. She wrapped the kid's hand around her belt and crab walked, them both out through a pocket of air. That felt like mercy. The corpsman met her in the passageway. Breath tight, vision flickering. She still refused the stretcher until the kid's lungs cleared. Only then did she let the world tilt. The medbay was cold and bright, clean voices knotted with speed. She watched gloves, not faces. She counted ceiling bolts. She said the only prayer she believes in. Make me useful again. A chest tube went in. Later, plates along 2 ribs took over the work that bone could not hold alone. She woke to a ship still moving. Crew still joking in that rough way relief chooses. And a quiet note from the CO. Proud of your judgment. No one wrote that line into the report that landed here. After weeks of rehab, she learned how to breathe without noticing again. Every step on the track felt like a small treaty signed between bone and will. She kept the night to herself, not from shame, but from a refusal to barter pain for praise. She wanted her record to be a ledger of work, not wounds. When the board called her in because someone upstream flagged possible insubordination. She ironed her shirt, packed her papers, and hoped the room would be as brave as the deck had asked her to be. The Admiral clears his throat, slower now. He glances at the medical note he had dismissed and finds it heavier than it looked. A commander to his left, eager to redeem the tone, asks measured questions about timelines and radio calls. Grace answers with neat, spare lines that leave little room for story to wander. She does not use the word hero. She does not teach the room about fear. She simply names choices and consequences like coordinates on a chart. On the back wall, Senior Chief Navarro shifts his weight. He served with Grace on another sea and once watched her patch. A hull breach with calm that made a deckhand cry from relief. He texts 2 words to a contact waiting in the hallway. "Now, please." The door remains closed, but the air around it begins to feel like weather about to change. The legal clerk notices and sets out additional chairs because sometimes hospitality is how truth sneaks in. Admiral Pierce asks why she didn't share photos of her injuries to support her case sooner. Grace smiles in a way that makes apology unnecessary. "Sir, I didn't know I had a case," she says. "Only a job." The sentence lands without denting the room. It lifts it. A junior officer near the window stops taking notes and starts listening. The commander looks down, embarrassed by questions he thought were careful, but were only small. The Admiral opens his mouth to wrap the meeting with a neutral decision and another review in 30 days. Before he can, a quiet procession fills the doorway. 4 sailors in service dress line the back of the room, hands folded, eyes forward. Behind them, the ship's doctor enters, with a sealed envelope and a face, like a steady hand on a shoulder. He is not dramatic. He is exact. Navarro addresses the board with permission he did not wait to receive. He states his name, his time in, and his purpose. To provide context the packet cannot hold. The Admiral, to his credit, nods. The doctor places the envelope on the table and keeps his voice soft enough to be heard as care, not spectacle. The envelope contains post-op reports, line-of-duty determinations, and a letter from the CO that somehow got lost between decks of bureaucracy. The CO's line is bolder here than the sticky note on the medbay bulkhead. Petty Officer Marin's judgment prevented a fatality. She acted within the intent of my order. Any discipline would be a mistake. The room pivots from suspicion to stewardship, without anyone needing to say the word sorry yet. Admiral Pierce reads the CO's letter twice. The silver in his hair looks less like authority and more like experience now that he is letting it teach him. He places the letter down with care as if paper can bruise, and looks at Grace the way a captain looks at a horizon he almost missed. He does not offer a speech. He offers correction. The board votes to clear any suggestion of misconduct, to mark her actions as meritorious, and to forward a recommendation for formal recognition. The Admiral adds a line to the record that feels like fresh air in a windowless room. "We are here to protect judgment, not punish it." He stands not to dismiss, but to own what comes next. He thanks the doctor, the chief, and the sailors for arriving as witnesses rather than noise. Grace breathes, deeper than she has all morning. The ache across her ribs hums with that odd warmth healing sometimes keeps for itself. Navarro grips her shoulder, proud without claiming credit. The young clerk wipes a cheek and looks annoyed at his own tenderness. Then he smiles. The Admiral turns to Grace and gives the apology rank rarely speaks, but people remember for a lifetime. "I was careless with your story," he says. "You were careful with lives. Thank you." 3 lines leave the room with everyone who sat in it. Scars are proof of promises kept. Respect is due before rank is read. Silence is strength when truth is near. They are not slogans. They are tools for the next moment a busy person mistakes quiet for smallness. A week later, the command gathers on the pier at sunset. No fanfare, just names, a few folded flags, and the sound of water against hull. Grace stands in formation, not at the podium. The Admiral steps forward with a small box and a softer face. He pins a medal that will rest more in a drawer than on a chest. The crew breaks into the kind of applause that doesn't try to fix anything, it simply honors what is already whole. A boardroom remembered what a deck already knew. The loudest voice is not always the truest. One sailor kept calm when a room grew careless. A leader felt the weight of a mark on skin and chose to learn instead of defend. "If this reached you, Tell us where you're watching from and the line that stayed with you. Share a story of a time respect finally caught up with truth. Subscribe for more cinematic stories that honor quiet courage, steady hands, and the people who carry both.